The Human Optimization Podcast is proudly brought to you by Vicon Supplements, where quality meets sustainability. Vicon's all-natural supplements are handcrafted and sustainably produced in Canada, bringing you products that nourish both your well-being and our planet. Visit viconsupplements.com today and be a part of a greener, healthier future.
I'm a hair mineral analysis expert. I have a background in functional medicine, and I educate people using HTMA testing to maximize health, erase debilitating symptoms, and gain energy. I'm a multi-time kettlebell sport world champion, and I'm constantly searching for high-performance pros from all over the world to bring you this human optimization podcast. My name is Lisa Pitel-Killah.
Welcome, everybody, to a brand new episode of the Human Optimization Podcast. I want you to get ready to be inspired today by our guest, Jenn Drummond. She is a remarkable woman who has conquered the world's 7 summits and recently became a world record holder. But her journey goes far beyond mountaineering. It's a testament to resilience, motivation, and the exhilaration of achievement. Her book, Quit Proof: The 7 Necessities for Becoming Resilient, will be released in January 2024. And we're going to talk all about her journey and her book and her business today. So Jenn, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
I can't wait to hear all about your story. I was on your website. I'm ready for that book to come out. I want my copy. And just share with our listeners and our viewers how you got here. Tell us your story.
Yeah, right? Like, how do we all get wherever we are these days? It's crazy, the sequence of events that we say yes to, or no to, right? It all factors in.
Absolutely.
So I would say the big line in the sand for me was a car accident that happened in 2018. So prior to 2018, I had a business. I had started hiring myself out of the business because I had so many children that I had to take care of, because I subscribe to the thought that, our dream is to be a stay-at-home mom.
Right.
I would say that maybe isn't the best use of my personality and energy full time. I love it that it is for others, but I definitely felt guilty for not wanting to be in that role. Like, I was in that role and I'm like, oh man, this isn't my favorite. Even though I love my children, I like having other things going on, and I just didn't know how to put that in. So I think the universe kind of nudges you, and you don't listen to the whispers. It gets really loud. And a car accident happened that was very, very loud. Should have taken my life and didn't. We have no clue how it didn't. They've rebuilt the accident, could not build a scenario where I survived. But what it did wake up in me is, man, I do not get to choose when I die. But I sure get to choose how I live. And right now I was living like, I'll launch my kids, then get back to me. I'll launch my kids, then get back to me. And a lot of us know that if then story. If this happens, then I can do that. And the accident said, no, you're alive. You need to figure out how to do both. And you need to start doing things that ignite your soul, because then you're actually better for all the people around you. And so I gave myself permission to explore what that looked like. I had a big birthday coming up in 2020, which was my 40th. And I'm like, I'm going to climb a mountain for my 40th birthday. Like, I want to do something that launches that decade with significance. And I live in Park City. So like, I'm by ski resorts and mountains or whatever, but I wanted to do a big mountain. So I called a couple of friends that were into mountaineering, and they're like, if you could do one mountain in the whole world, I would climb a mountain called Ama de Blanc. It's located in Nepal. It's the Paramount Pictures logo. It means the mother's necklace. I'm like, oh, all these things sound perfect. Like, I'm going to go climb Ama de Blanc. Well, if we rewind to 2020, after about March, all of our plans were abrupted because COVID entered the scene and reset what life meant for many of us. I ended up being a homeschool teacher to my beautiful 7 children. And one of my kids was struggling with his math homework. And I'm like, buddy, we do hard things. You've got this. Like, don't worry. And he looks at me and he goes, if we do hard things, why are you climbing a mountain called I'm a Dumb Blonde instead of a real mountain like Mount Everest? I go, Ama de Blanc, honey, not I'm a dumb blonde. Like, Ama de Blanc. And so I'm like, finish your homework. We'll look at Everest. So we finished his homework. We looked at Everest. He went to bed. I was still looking at Everest. I'm like,
Yeah.
why not Everest?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, by the end of the week, I hired a coach and I was climbing Ama de Blanc and Mount Everest.
Mm-hmm.
And then this coach gave me a book and in the front, like to train.
Yep.
Because I wasn't really a mountaineer, so I needed a lot of help training. And in the front of the book, there was a lady who got a Guinness World Record for skiing across the Alps. And I remember thinking, I could have done that. Like I can suffer. Like I could have done that. And I would be the coolest mom ever because I'm not really ranking on cool factor right now. This homeschooling thing is beating me apart. My kids don't think I'm awesome. And they learned how to read on Guinness World Records. And so like in a half joking conversation with my coach, I said, I'm like, I could have done that. He goes, I'll come up with something. I'm like, okay, fine. Come up with something, but I'm not growing pumpkins or speed eating hot dogs. So whatever that is, you let it be.
Yeah.
And then a few weeks later, he calls me back. He's like, Jen, I have the perfect goal for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay. Totally forgot about our previous conversation. He's like, I think you should be the first female to climb the 7-second summits. I'm like, what are the 7-second summits? I don't even know what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, they're the second highest point on each continent. They have only been done by one male before.
Oh.
You would be able to go to 7 continents, climb 7 mountains. You have 7 children. It sounds like a jackpot.
Yeah.
I'm like, it does kind of sound like a jackpot. Let me look into it, because I wanted to, after that accident, I'm like, I want to explore the world. I want to experience things. I want to meet people from all over. I want to empower women and tell them we can be moms and business people and ourselves. Like there's room for all of it.
Yeah.
And so I stepped into that quest. I just finished it June 1st of 2023.
Oh, wow. That is amazing. I didn't realize it was so recent.
Yes.
Wow. What a
Yes.
feat. That is, congratulations. That is amazing.
Yeah. Now I will tell you, like the whole journey was crazy and different mountains have different stories, but
Yep.
yeah, like this year was 2.5 years after I climbed the first one. And it, some mountains took a couple times and
Yep.
all the things that go with it, but woo, I'm still kind of buzzing. Woo!
That is amazing. Wow. And so the first one was obviously in Nepal.
Yeah.
And
yeah. So yep.
Tell us, give us the locations. I want to know where everything was.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of fun. Okay.
Yeah.
So the first, I did Ama de Blanc first, like I
Okay.
promised my friends, and that was my birthday present to me.
Yeah.
Absolute. It's probably still my favorite climb, to be honest, if anybody wants to get in mountaineering, it's amazing.
Yep.
Then I went to Chile and I did Ojos del Salado, which is located in the Atacama Desert.
Mhm.
It's kind of funny because these countries, the reason why you climb mountains at certain times of the year is because that's when it's safe to climb mountains at that time of year.
Yes.
But then also I was factoring in when countries open due to COVID.
Oh, right. Yeah, that was a
Right.
challenge,
So
of
this
course,
was
yeah.
very interesting. So I did Ojos del Salado in South America.
Mhm.
Then I went to Africa and climbed Mount Kenya,
Mhm.
which is the second highest point in Africa. I went to climb Everest. So I did Everest. I was using Everest as training ground for K2.
Okay.
So K2 is located in Pakistan.
Mhm.
I did not summit K2 the first time. We had stuff happen. I had to go back.
Okay.
Then I went to Russia in September of 2021. They lost all my luggage. It was this deal. I'm like, do I climb this mountain? Do I not climb this mountain? I'm like, I'll do rental gear. We'll figure it out. I climbed it. Thank goodness, because 6 months later it closed, right?
Oh
You're
my
not, you
gosh.
can't go to Russia right now. And I haven't been
Right.
like, I'm like, oh,
Yep.
I'm so glad I did that when I
Like
did that.
Yep.
So that's the second highest point in Europe.
Mhm.
Then I went to Antarctica and climbed Mount Tyree.
Mhm.
And then I went to Canada to climb Mount Logan. I did
Amazing.
not summit Mount Logan. I went back to K2, summited K2.
Mhm.
Then I went to Australia, climbed Mount Townsend in Australia. And then just this June, went back to Mount Logan and we had success this time.
Amazing. Wow. And so, you have to have a strong mindset, which I can tell you do, right? Just talking to you. But so, because when you attempt something and then have to go back, you need to really redo right? You need a full reset. Tell me how that was for you. Like, what did you do to get your head around something? Because a lot of people, when they don't accomplish something, they just never try it again, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
they let that stop them. So what were there any techniques or anything that you did to kind of just get your mind ready for that second attempt?
Yes. So I'm going to share two that I
Okay.
feel have helped a lot. So one of them is this concept of acclimatizing.
Yep.
So I had no idea, like I was so naive in mountaineering when I got into this, that I thought when you climbed Mount Everest, for example, you started at the bottom and it just took you forever to get to the top and then you came
Yeah.
back home.
Right.
But once I got there, or when I was starting to study it more and train, you actually acclimatize. So
Mhm.
what happens is you start at base camp and then you'll climb up to camp 1 or camp 2,
Mhm.
wherever your body's going to fail you because
Mm.
there's not enough oxygen in the air. So then you like physically can't move anymore. It's so slow because the body doesn't have the oxygen to make
Yeah.
the movement.
Mhm.
So then you go back whenever you hit that point, you kind of stay at that camp as long as you can. So we had lunch at camp 2.
Mhm.
Then you go all the way back down to base camp. And
Mm.
when you go all the way back down to base camp, you spend a few days at base camp. And while you're at base camp, your body is physiologically changing. It's
Mm.
building more red blood cells so that when you go up the mountain high enough again, now it has enough red blood cells to handle the lack of oxygen environment and you can go higher up the mountain.
Right.
And I think that's a really important thing to understand when we're taking on big goals or we run into points of failure. That doesn't mean stop. That
Mhm.
means come home, take in the lesson,
Yeah.
learn what you need to learn, figure out how to go back and
Mhm.
change something so that you can go up the mountain. Maybe you need more fitness, maybe you need to eat healthier, maybe you need
Yeah.
to do something different. But that whole concept of failure actually needs to happen so that your body can have the change so that you can go further
Mhm.
is a concept that I learned from mountaineering, and I think we can apply it to our everyday lives.
100%.
So that's like lesson 1.
Mhm.
Lesson 2 is, okay, I failed K2 the first time, and it was a horrific experience. Like K2 in 2021 was a really hard experience on a number of levels. I had a teammate die, I had a
Oh my
teammate lose his
gosh.
hand to frostbite. We had just so many things go wrong that I never even like you read about it, but you don't really think it's going to happen to you or somebody on your team. So
Right.
when it does, it hits home.
Mhm.
I came back into LA. I actually stayed in a hotel in LA for a night before I flew all the way back to Park City
Mhm.
because I needed to get rid of all the bad feelings that happened. I actually call it my grump dump. I dumped out everything that bad happened
Yeah.
from scratchy toilet paper to a friend passing to, like all the things.
Yeah.
And then you can sort through it and see it and be, oh, these are things that really don't matter. These are things that do. What can I do differently to come back? How do I metabolize all this?
Yeah.
And so when I came back to my family, I could talk to them and say, my kids asked, like, did you summit? I said, no, I didn't summit, but I had success.
Mhm.
I'm like, well, we don't get it. I'm like, well, I had the opportunity to continue up the mountain, but I actually turned around to take care of my team. And who we are as people is more important than what we achieve.
Right.
And so I did have success. That doesn't mean that I didn't want to go back and conquer that mountain because I needed to be able to get this record.
Mhm.
But for the next year, I kept thinking, okay, there's always purpose in failure. Like, why did I fail? Why did I fail? Why did I fail? And when I was getting ready to go back to K2, I was not excited. I did not want to go. My nerves were getting the best of me
Yeah.
and all these things. And then, like a little present, the universe provided an opportunity for me to help sponsor somebody else climb this mountain. I had become
Mm.
aware that there was a Pakistani female that
Mhm.
did not have the resources to summit her country's prized peak, and
Mhm.
she'd be the first one. And so I brought gear over. I brought some other resources over. And when I stood on top of K2, I was excited. When she stood on top of K2 a little bit after me, I was a waterwork mess
Oh,
because
man.
I knew I have daughters and I know
Mhm.
how important it is for my daughters to see people that look like them in an environments that aren't normal
Yeah.
because that allows them to picture themselves in environments that are not quotations normal.
Normal. Yeah.
And I'm like, that's why I failed. I went back to make more possible for somebody else. So if you have failure, like one of the things I want to challenge you to look at is what more can come from the story if you go back. Maybe you failed for a reason because your story can lift others. And
Yeah.
how does that look and what can you do to right that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's very moving. And you're right. And, there was a gentleman I had spoken to, that was a few months back now. And he said to me, it's not that you don't fail, you never fail, but you either win or you learn.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And you are the one that decides what that learn looks like. And if you're going to go back and conquer that again. And so super powerful. Obviously, there's a reason for everything. I believe that. And I think that was definitely the reason why that happened. So that's pretty amazing. And what's one of the biggest things, and you may have already mentioned this, so if you did, we can kind of move forward, but one of the biggest takeaways from all of this, what would be one of the biggest pieces of advice or takeaways just in general that you would give somebody based on your experience and a lot of tough goes and overcoming obstacles? What would that be?
Yeah. I mean, I come back to the statement that I live my life by. I don't get to choose when I die,
Mm-hmm.
but I sure get to choose how I live.
Yeah.
And I'm choosing this. Like the power of choice is so magnificent. Like I'll give you an example. I was worried that I was going to run late to our meeting today because my son called me to say, "Hey mom, I don't like lunch. Can you bring me lunch?"
Yeah.
And I am a mom that's balancing 100 things. So when your kid calls and they want you to bring lunch, like I want to bring them lunch, but I also I need to take care of me too. Like, how am I going to fit this in? And I
Yeah.
know I'm struggling with it because I get grouchy. I get grouchy when things aren't smooth. And so I'm like, okay, fine. I'm going to run you lunch real quick. Tomorrow you're packing a lunch. I don't care. Like I can't do this every day. And so I ran him lunch and I came back. And as I'm coming back, I'm like, I'm choosing to be grumpy about this. Like I'm choosing to these emotions that I'm feeling right now. And everything's fine. I got back 15 minutes early, like blah, 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 blah. And those are stories that I was choosing to write in my head.
Yeah.
And so you really have to recognize, like, what am I choosing to believe? What am I choosing to have be the truth? Because a lot of times there's more than one angle to that truth.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. And so let's talk a little bit share about your book.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Like obviously you've got tons of inspiration about why you wanted to write this, but give us some tidbits and let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I wrote the book. We changed the title a little bit. So it's Quit Proof: 7 Strategies to Build Resilience and Achieve Your Life Goals.
Okay.
Yes.
I
And
love it.
I do. I'm so excited about it. I will tell you that writing the book was harder than climbing the mountains, because I don't sit still very well. And so having to sit in a chair and then having my thoughts are very ADD. So I had all these thoughts everywhere and then trying to funnel them into, okay, here's lessons that people can actually utilize and take away.
Not an easy task.
Not an easy task, but super rewarding because now I can talk about it and be very precise. So then it's easy for people to extract what they need from the lessons.
Yeah.
So yeah, the book was fun. It's super exciting because I quit on myself. And once I realized that was a choice I made and I could do something different. And I figured out how to run a business, be a mom, and do things that got me excited. I was like, I have to share this. I have to, I want other people to have these tools so they can do and feel the way I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say one of the big lessons from the book is wave your flag. And I know this sounds silly, but when you think about people climbing mountains, you always see the picture at the top of the mountain where somebody's waving their flag, right? And it's really easy for us to wave our flags when we're at the top of our mountains, metaphorically and physically.
Mm-hmm.
But when we're not at the top of our mountains, it's just as important to wave our flag because it allows other people to know where we are, how they can help, and how we can help.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'll give you an example. I was not going to climb Mount Kenya until towards the end because it was more of a rock climb. And I'm not necessarily a rock climber. There's a difference between mountaineering and rock climbing. And I knew I needed to brush up my skills to be better to be able to climb this mountain. Well, I had announced that I'm trying to set this world record, which is again not my personality. I'd rather achieve it and then
And
talk
then
about it. But my friends convinced me like, "Hey, you need to bring us on this journey and just talk about it and let us
yeah.
hear about it and all this kind of stuff." So I did. And a friend of mine reached out to me and she's like, "Hey, did I see that you need to go to Africa for one of your climbs?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do. I need to go to Kenya." She's like, "Amazing. I'm part of a charity that needs to deliver an ambulance to a charity in Africa.
Yeah.
Do you think you could go in February and then deliver this ambulance for us so it saves us this money and then go do your climb then?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I'll figure out how to rock climb then, no problem, right?" And so they then another like, and then when I called the lady to say, "Okay, hey, I'm gonna come over. How do we make all this happen and all these deals?" I go, "I need some help to like get ready for this." She helped find like a really good guide for me and
Mhm.
all this kind of stuff. So I waved my flag. That allowed other people knowing, "Hey, she's going to Africa, maybe she can help us."
Yeah.
And then it also let other people know like, "Hey, this isn't my strongest suit. Here's somebody we can have help you get there."
Yeah.
And we all collaborated together because people knew where I was on the journey.
Yeah. Amazing.
So wave your flag, my friends. Wave them,
Yeah.
wave them, wave them. And
Amazing.
then another big lesson from the book is big mountains. So big mountains, as in big goals, take big teams. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that
Yeah.
again. Big mountains take big teams. And let me share a little story on this to help this resonate and hit home. I am a mom to 7 kids. Like I had maybe been away from my kids for 6 days total. Maybe. I don't even know if I could have collected that many. When
Yeah.
it was time to, and a lot of the climbs aren't that long, but Everest was going to be 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Some people have to spend 8 weeks to climb Everest. I live at altitude, so I could short circuit that a little
Mm.
bit, but still, the concept of me being gone for 3 to 4 weeks was just, that was like, there's no way. Like, I cannot do this. My mom volunteered to help. We have a nanny that helped. Other people stepped up.
Mhm.
And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to the kids' school. I'm going to tell the teachers and I'm going to leave. So maybe they can give my kids a little bit more grace while I'm gone and
Yeah.
understand that I'm not there. So they might act out and here's what's happening. So I went to the school and then the school came back to me and they said, "Hey, you know what? Why don't you do a What's Your Everest campaign for the school? Come in,
Yeah.
talk to the kids in the classroom about setting big goals,
Mhm.
whatever their Everest is. We'll put the little hikers in the hallway. We'll put a big mountain in the front entryway of the school. And then I had a tracking device. So they made a tiny hiker. And depending on where I
Oh
was on
my
the mountain,
gosh.
they would move me up and down the mountain so the kids could follow along.
Yeah.
Well, nowadays, technology's magic, and I could do Zoom calls from base camp. So I
Oh
could
my
call from
gosh.
Everest Base Camp
Yep.
into these kids' classrooms, and I talked about, what I ate and where I went to the bathroom because that's all they cared about. And my kids, like I was gone, and my kids felt so seen and so loved, and my whole community got behind me that when I stood on top of Everest, it wasn't even me. It was
Yeah.
our entire community, like every little kid who had a little flag that had a goal. It was saying, "This is possible. Like we can do this, friends."
Yeah.
And I feel that community allowed me to be present where I was and do what I needed to do because I knew my kids and everything else that was important to me was taken care of.
Yeah. Wow. And what a wonderful way for them to be able to share in that experience.
Yeah,
Like all of
right?
them. That is
All of them. No,
amazing.
I have like little kids that come over to our house because they're friends with my kids. They'll be like,
Yeah.
"You're the mom that climbed Everest." I'm like, "I am." And they'll say, "I want to climb Everest." I'm like, "I'll support you. Let's make it happen. You tell me
That is
when."
amazing.
You
Oh
know,
my
and like
goodness.
it's fun because when you dare to step into things that make you excited, make you passionate, and you share that journey,
Mhm.
you give other people around you permission to do the same.
Exactly. Yeah. And you made a comment earlier too, just about being able to have, be a mom, have a career, do things that you love. What's one of the, I guess, a piece of advice that you would give to somebody who's listening that says, I don't even know where to start?
Yeah, it's hard. Like the start is the hardest part. I'm just letting you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, like, because the start means you have to rewrite a story that you are believing, right? You have to say, like, actually, no, I can do this, or there's a way to fit this in. Now, I'll be honest. Did my Everest training look like other people's Everest training? No, I wish my only job was climbing Everest. That would be
Yeah.
magic. That is not my reality. So
Yeah.
what I did is I hired a coach and I put my kids' stuff in there, and then I put my work stuff in there and
Mhm.
said, here's what you get left over. Like, figure out how to get me in shape with this leftover stuff because
Mhm.
I cannot be on a hike and be worried about all these other things going on because then
Yeah.
I'm not going to enjoy my hike.
Of
So I
course.
need to
Yeah.
first take care of my kids, then take care of my business. Then we're going to figure out this fitness thing.
Mhm.
And so my training, like I was that nerdy mom. I went to soccer games and I had a 12-inch step. And on the side of that soccer game, I was going up and down with a weighted backpack so that I could watch the soccer game and
And do
still at
your
least get some training in.
yeah.
Right. So you have to be willing to have it not look textbook.
Mhm.
You have to be willing to let it look whatever messy way it looks
Mhm.
and understand that it gets it done.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And being able, well, and understanding the, I don't want to say necessity, but the innovation, it's a better word, to multitask, right?
Yeah.
To be able
Right.
to take part in something that you want to and be able to also be moving towards that goal that you want as well. Yeah,
Yeah. Right. And you have to try to make it fun. Right. So
exactly.
I mean, I had to pull sleds on some of my stuff. So the kids would take turns sitting in the back of the sled and I'd have to like try to ski with them in it. And they thought it was so funny that I couldn't move because they're heavy and all the different things. But I mean, that's what you remember, right? They remember, like, remember when you had to do this, mom? Remember when you had to do that, mom? And
Yeah.
it's just, it is what it is.
Oh, for sure. And think of, it just, again, that inspiration, the positivity, all of that trickles down to others, right? And to the next generation to be able to say, I can do anything, which is what they
Yeah.
should be saying, right? I feel like
Right.
nowadays we have so much just not I guess not necessarily negativity, but just so many people, I hear them and it's like, well, I'm too old for that, or I'm getting older, and I'm like, what are you talking about? You know? I'm like, yeah,
Right.
I turned 50 this year and I'm like, next year I'm going to be back at the World Championships. And they're like, you're crazy. And I'm like, no, I'm not crazy, actually. Right?
Right.
If
Right.
there's other
You're
people out there doing
crazy.
these
Like what,
things.
like you, like pick your crazy, right? Like everybody gets to pick their crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so books coming out in January 2024,
Yep.
and we'll talk about just where to get it stuff at the end, but I want to touch on something else. So what's your next goal?
Right. Right.
I want to know.
So the book is a goal. I
Yeah.
love public speaking.
Yeah.
So I've been doing a lot of speaking engagements and talking and doing the rah-rah cheerleader stuff, which is one
Mhm.
of my favorites.
Yeah.
I also have been taking people out on some hikes. A
Nice.
lot of busy executives and business owners and people making big decisions,
Yep.
they have a lot of noise. And so I take them out of the environment, get us outside, away from everything, help them connect to this internal intuition
Yep.
and pull back and make some decisions that work for them and their business.
Mhm.
I love that because it applies to my business brain and my fitness brain.
Yeah.
Um, I have little challenges that I have on the website that if you feel inspired to participate in, they're fun. I like challenges and I need accountability. If it's
Mhm.
not on my calendar, or if it's not like a thing I need to check off my to-do list, sometimes it will keep getting pushed off into never land.
Yep.
So I built challenges to hold me accountable. One of
Mhm.
my friends is like, I want to do this with you. And so I opened it up to more people and now we do these challenges together. And for
Mm.
example, the next one in October is a connection challenge as a
Mhm.
parent, like how to
Mhm.
connect with your kids. And we have one in January that's an intention challenge, like just setting some time away to reflect and be self-aware and do some trigger meditation and different things.
Yeah. That is
Yeah.
amazing. And so let's talk about getting in touch with for business purposes. So you're doing these hikes, right? And so talk about just how people can get involved with that.
Yeah, please. So people will go to my website typically. So
Mhm.
jendrummond.com.
Mhm.
That's the base for everything. So you can
Mhm.
find whatever social channels you like to find me there. You can find the link to the book on Amazon. It's available for pre-order now. And you can reach out to me and say like, hey, Jen, I heard about this. I'd really like to learn more. It's very customized because depending on where the person's fitness is, where they are in the country, what they want to do, then we look at that. And then I look at where their business is, what they're trying to do there, and give them some advice.
Amazing. And I know we mentioned, so first off, all the contact information for Jen's website, of course, socials will be in the description, but it's Jenn with 2 N's, just so that we're all on the same. In case anybody's like on there now typing that in, I just want to make sure you know that.
I love you. Good call.
You'll end up in the right place, which is always good. And so, yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, what an inspiration. And so, I mean, and your story is just like, I hope that you're traveling the world to talk about your story, because ultimately, you know, we as a population, as individuals, I feel like a lot of people don't even realize how much they need to hear things like this, right? Because, you know, and again, after the last 3 years, everybody's super stressed and everything's changed and they're going through changes in business and all these things are happening. And I think when you kind of really break it down and think about what's important, right? Which is bringing some of those goals to the table, which is bringing even your health and your fitness to the table and kind of taking some of those things in. I think it really just spins a new perspective that should be on our radar all the time that people have just forgotten.
Right. And we're human. Like we're perfectly imperfect together. And if one of us can achieve it, all of us can achieve it. So let's unite, let's share, let's collaborate, let's have some fun.
Exactly. Oh, well, Jenn, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing with your experience. It was inspirational, to say the least, and I'm excited. So remember, the book is coming out January 2024. We'll have the link for Amazon if you want to pre-order now. And yeah, I just, I'm in awe. I'm like, what's my next goal? What's my next step going to be? We have to start planning now, right?
Yes. Yeah. Get a head start. If you start going now, let's go for it.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you.
So for those of you watching on YouTube, subscribe to my channel. There's a brand new episode every 2 weeks. Give this episode a thumbs up. And for those of you listening on your favorite podcast host, make sure you give this episode a like, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to today's show. Head over to Pitel-Killah.com to gain access to some amazing free resources that will help you gain energy, erase debilitating symptoms, and be the best version of you. Remember to give this podcast a like and follow me on social media at Lisa Pitel-Killah. I'm here every 2 weeks with a brand new episode of the Human Optimization Podcast. Until next time.